All right, guys, welcome back to the Sex and Bacon podcast. On today's episode, I have a guest with me. Her name is Marianne St Clair, and I'm really excited to have you on here today and dive into all of the things that it is that you do. You have a very wide range of things that it is that you do that kind of in the I guess in multiple fields. You talk about the business of pleasure, better sex, bigger profits, the path to ultimate fulfillment. So, if you wouldn't mind, just for our listeners, a quick little introduction about yourself, kind of your background and what it is that you actually do in this space.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Sarah, and all of your guests. My name is Marianne St Clair, and for all of my life, I have really carried a lot of sex energy, and it has, been sort of weaved in through my path. And for 26 years, I have been a life coach. And I kind of have about the past 5 years been moving more towards the feminine muse. So, life coaching to me is a very masculine model. Coaching in and of itself is, where it's very structured. It's very do this and you'll accomplish this. Whereas,
Hmm.
really, this rising of the feminine that's been really coming up through me and through a lot of other women and people in general. The muse is really wanting to be in the forefront these days. So I bring the two together into my work, helping my clients to have an orgasmic life. And I talk about all kinds of things, sex, and helping people really be more self expressed in their sex and make lots of money.
Hmm. So, because a lot of people probably maybe don't understand quite the correlation between sex and financial success. So, can you kind of give, I guess, an explanation as to how it is you see that those two tie in together and where it is that people are kind of going wrong with that?
Sure. It's really an interesting topic that many of your listeners, and if they haven't, they should. I'm going to give you a should, but read the book "Think and Grow Rich" by Napoleon Hill. It's a very well-known book in the business and self-development. It's written back in the 30s in 1937. He interviewed 500 wealthy businessmen at that time, because back then it was mainly men,
Hmm.
and um, just wanted to really dive into what was the principles to their success. Well, in chapter 11 in his book, he talks about sexual transmutation. And he talks about it. He talks about it being one of the most valuable principles that, attributes to wealth, genius, and money, but yet he didn't give any clues. It was kind of like this mysterious thing. So many people have
Hmm.
read that book, but nobody really knew for so long, unless you really got privy to the information. What is this sexual transmutation?
Hmm.
So, second chakra, if your listeners know what the chakras are, second chakra has to do with sex, money. It's the dantian, it's in the power center. It's this so that chakra, when you move the energy from the base and you cultivate it, and our base chakra, the our foundation, our you move it up to and cultivate and harness your sexual energy, then you can move that into creating anything you want. So rather than just having sex for the sake of having sex, a simple pleasure, it's really
Hmm.
a practice that can change your life in so many ways. So that's where sex and money go together. Second chakra, and learning how to really have fun playing in creating, um, because the sexual energy, if you think about it for a minute, Sarah, sexual energy is what makes babies. Sexual energy is what
Hmm.
brings us all into this world. It's the most potent energy we have. And when you see somebody who is so turned on and in their turn on, they're magnetizing, they're bringing everything to them. And so when you really like light up and your sexual energy and use it, there's no telling what you can create.
I love that you say that, and I have heard from other, people that's in the same space that, manifesting is something that is really good to do during orgasms. When you're having an orgasm, you are in a place of actual creation, and I've heard that through some Abraham Hicks things and stuff like that before, and like that's a great time to manifest is while you're having orgasms. So I guess then my question is, because obviously not everybody is in a place where there's maybe their sexual partners are, let's say, healthy relationships of sexual partners. um do you think that that then has an effect on what it is you are creating for that in that space? I mean, if you have a toxic relationship and a lot of your sexual experience is surrounded with, toxic energy or some negativity in the relationship, in this situation, that it's not healthy for you, is that going to create then some negative, stuff compared to what we're looking to create on the positive side of that?
So it can go two different directions here with this. So everything we choose life depleting activities. So if you're in a
Mhm.
toxic relationship with somebody that and you're surrounding yourself with people that are constricting and depleting your energy and you're depleting your own energy by being in that situation and then you're focused on that, you're creating more of that. So sexual energy is something that runs through us. It's not something that we only have to do during orgasm. It's
Mhm.
something that as I sit here, I can do Kegel muscles and I can just start cultivating my sexual energy. And then I can be able to bring it up into my heart and then I can bring it to an intention and I can say, ooh, I want to create a guest, appearance on
Mhm.
Sex and Bacon, you know? And or I want to create a relationship, a healthy relationship. It's really choosing. Are you aware of and are you consciously directing what you're focusing on? Are you focused on and being around life depleting or life affirming and life giving? So, what I would
Mhm.
encourage you to do is put your attention on life giving and life affirming and really start changing your whole world by changing your focus and cultivating that energy versus the toxic. Because if we're shut down, I was shut down in my sexual energy and it was so we can either choose to allow this to really be in the forefront or we can shut it down and shut down our pussies and shut down our our sexual energy for men. Or we can use it for our good. We can use it
Mhm.
to really use that creative energy to create what we want.
Mhm. I love how
So it
you say
doesn't
that.
have
And
to be just when we're in sex. It's all the time.
right. Yeah, no, and it's so true. And I've experienced that. Like, I've always been a very sexual person, but I've also been, I probably wasn't always using it in like the healthiest ways, which now, I can, looking back, I completely aware of those things. And then I had to ask myself, am I going to hook up with this person or be with this person because I actually genuinely want to, or because I feel like I need to? And when it was filling a void and doing it out of a place of a need over a genuine want because it was going to add value to my life or benefit me in, like, in some way, or making me feel better, or actually bringing something matching my energy. I mean, if you really looked at it, it was more, I was just doing things for the sake of doing it, and then it does leave you feeling depleted. And it's like, okay, so those sexual encounters are not adding to anything I'm trying to create in my life, but it becomes this like vicious cycle that I think a lot of women, we get stuck in, and we feel like we need to. And there's so much out there about casual sex, and although I do believe in orgasm and I do believe people, can 1000% enjoy casual sex with, partners who maybe are not long term, this and that. I think sometimes the reason going into it, or
Mm,
choosing that casual partner for where he lines up and where you kind of line up, and it's there's a little bit of an alignment in that way, will make the difference as to whether it's going to leave you feeling, like you said, depleted, or if it
mhm.
won't, add to your sexual energy and add to the creation of what you're doing in your life, right?
Yeah, I feel that, a lot of times we there's a shadow side to our main needs, and sex
Mhm.
goes along with love and connection. So if you're looking for love and connection, but yet you're just going for casual sex, a lot of times at the end, you're left hungry. You're trying to feed this
Mhm.
hungry ghost within you, but it becomes almost like an addiction. Porn or casual sex can become an addiction because you're not actually satiating that part of you that is really wanting that deeper love and connection. And then you turn it on self-defeating. Then it's like, oh,
Mhm.
well, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not whatever you say to yourself on the inside. But really, it's an inner game. When we start
Mhm.
changing our inner and know our worth and know our value and stand in that queen energy versus this, you know, either mistress energy or some of the lower vibrational, things of that women are adolescent. We can bring the little
Mhm.
girl that got hurt or that got sexually abused, rather than really rising on the inside and being that bold, beautiful, magnificent version of yourself and choosing from that place, choosing what your
Mhm.
experience is, choosing what you're doing, who you're doing it with. It's a lot different.
No, and it's so true, and I love
Smiley.
how you brought up the mistress energy, because I think that in itself sometimes, even though um a lot of men or a lot of women go into that type of situation with a natural detachment, believing that there's a natural detachment there and that you're safe and you're protected because you've emotionally shut off that part of you, knowing that it's not supposed to be something more. I think no matter what, in those situations, you always get caught up, and that energy that you are creating in a sexual way eventually ends up being just as toxic as it was, say, in any other relationship, right? Like, it really is hard for your body and your mind to completely detach to the point where you're not being affected by those things. And I've never really ever thought of it before like that, because I've always thought like, "Oh, it's completely safe because, like, I know there's boundaries. I know what the boundaries are." But it's like me telling myself that, but what my body feels, because it feels the connection, then it's like, "Well, no, then there should be more," but then you're not getting it, and then you become, all of your energy is being given to this one person who cannot give you back anything that you're giving out, so you're just completely depleted in so many ways, which I've noticed when I'm in those situations. It seems like other things in my life start to kind of go a little bit haywire. Things that seemed, that they were working, things that seemed like they were a little bit stable. It seems like all of a sudden, when that energy for me is like, pulling in places, I'm kind of like, okay, something is causing this. And that is the first thing my mind thinks of. It's this sexual encounter, this sexual relationship that I'm part of, that is affecting me and affecting my life in so many other ways, even though you don't want to admit that it is, right?
How you do one thing's how you do everything, and
Mhm.
if
Yeah.
you're so I spent a lot of time really diving in because I never really aligned with the mistress and master relationships and
Mhm.
and all of that, and here's what I came up with. So in a lot of that, to me, it's a little bit lower vibrational because
Mhm.
you're giving somebody power over you, or you're taking somebody else's power. And to me, when you align with the queen and king energy, somebody can come, but they're in full consciousness, wanting to be in devotion or wanting to be in, in a place of worship, or and
Mhm.
so it's it's a higher vibration to me. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm open for any discussions on somebody who thinks differently, but I really think that when surrender is a great thing, and vulnerability, but we have to choose what is that surrender and what is that vulnerability, and why am I having to give all my power and my psyche over to
Mhm.
someone else, and if that is really life affirming. To
Mhm.
me it never was life affirming. I i want to use that energy towards things that are going to contribute to the other person in a healthy, engaged way that's going to benefit both. And that just wasn't ever um, my feeling towards it. I'm all
Mhm.
about the feels more than thinking.
Right.
And if something doesn't feel good and it's not producing a good outcome in all areas, why would I want to engage on giving that power to somebody else? I just think of like Jeffrey Epstein, and
Yeah.
somebody like that. You're giving power to this person who's using all of your sexual energy for their own
Mhm.
benefit. Why would we want to do that? You
When in
know?
turn we could use it for our own personal benefit if we actually learn to, well, harness it
And
in ourselves
humanity.
and then to actually, yeah, sorry?
And humanity, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
can definitely, we women and men, because we all carry the masculine and feminine. But as this
Mhm.
feminine energy and creative energy is rising, it's an opportunity for us all really to use this to the benefit of ourselves, our
Mhm.
families, and humanity.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I like the way you say that. And I mean, women really do harness a lot of, sexual energy, some more than others. I don't know if if you use or you into read the Human Design.
Hmm.
So I
Yes,
love
that's
those
the
books. Yes, I love it, and I love diving into mine, and that's the one thing I did notice is it's like, even when I look at mine and, like, my friends, it's like some of us for that, that sacral chakra, some of us have it where the energy is automatically there, and it's just this is something we naturally have, whereas others feed off of somebody else's, right? And so in always knowing that I was a very sexual person, and then when I saw mine that it was ever flowing, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And through so many different readings and things that I've had so many women say, like, you do have a lot of sexual energy, but now use it in a way where it's for something different. Use that sexual energy when you're doing your Reiki healings. Use that power to do the good things that you want to do and to help others. And it was kind of like, oh, I can. It's like I can harness that in a way where I'm using it for a benefit. It didn't always have to be to give it to a man. It didn't always have to be for these external things that it's like I felt like I had to use it for. And when you realize you can use it so well internally for yourself in so many ways in your own life, it really does feel different. It's a different shift of like the way you use it, and the
Yeah.
energy feels better, right? It
Yeah.
feels less stagnant.
Yes, and when we can get into that flow, and I
Mhm.
apologize for cutting you off. I was just so excited about it. It's not just for babies. It's not just for the
Mhm.
creation of babies. Yes, that is one thing that we women create, but this is where the muse energy comes in. There's a
Mhm.
rise right now, and I am really learning all of this in myself so that I can help other women come into the muse that's within them,
Mhm.
because we need to start within our own selves, but sparking creation in the world to
Mhm.
where it's beauty is being brought in and things that will help to serve humanity in some other ways. We can birth new products, we can birth new programs into the world. We don't have to just birth babies. So
Mhm.
I'm very passionate about women learning how to, and men learning how to use this, not coming from the masculine patriarchal way of, you know, dominating and working ourselves in the doingness of life,
Mhm.
but who are we being? How are we utilizing this potent energy? Are we cultivating it and then bringing it forward for good for ourselves and for other people?
Yeah, no, for sure. So you do work with a lot of women then, and like you'd said, like you were a life coach before, but now you coach kind of doing more things. What is it that you find with a lot of the women that you work with that it is their biggest struggle is in, I guess, accepting or being sexual creatures, especially since there has been such a harsh social stigma on women and their sexuality for so many years? Like, what is it that you see that is the biggest challenge for them to kind of step into that freedom?
Well, first, it's the first part of what I do in my work is the turn off the beliefs, barriers, and bullshit that we've been
Mhm.
fed, that we feed ourselves, that we've been conditioned into believing. Because if a man is really strong, he's and comes out in his sexual energy and he's having sex with several men, women, then he's like thought of as good. But a woman, if she's like choosing to have several partners, then she's thought of as a whore or a slut
Mhm.
or a whatever, all these other names that we've been conditioned to believing. But really, a woman owning her own lusciousness, owning her own, it's like a creme brulee. A creme brulee, it has that fine outer shell on it, and when you take that spoon and you pop it, there's all this luscious and juiciness underneath, and it's like
Mhm.
what I like to do is like get to that, help women and men to get to that vulnerability that's underneath, and then really just owning all of that and bringing it forward into the world and believing that you, in your most natural state, in your most
Mhm.
vibrant, vivacious, natural state, you have power within you that you can tap into from source and own it. Own however your unique expression of that is. For you, for me, we're here talking about sex, and it's a great thing that needs to be discussed. People need to have liberation around their own
Mhm.
desires, their own fulfillment of those desires, their own unique expression. And I believe the more and more and more we do this and we all join together and rise in our sexual liberation,
Mhm.
I believe that it's just a beautiful, powerful thing to see a woman who's fully tuned in and turned on, and she is in her power. It's like that itch. You know her when she walks across the room.
Mhm.
I mean, she doesn't have to say anything, she doesn't have to be dressed, but you know it because she's in her power.
Yeah.
And I just believe we all should get there. We all should just
Yeah.
celebrate and celebrate
Yeah.
that in our sisters.
Yes.
We need to celebrate that within each other, not
Yeah.
go, "Ooh, look at her," No, we all need to look like go, "Woo, yes, queen,
Yeah.
rise on up there."
Yeah, I've always thought that is it's each person celebrates and each person does show their own personal sexuality in so many different ways, and there's so many different comfort levels with it that it is one of those things where I've always thought like you can't look at one person and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe she's wearing that." And have those thoughts of, with the way people dress or how they look or how they choose to show up, in life or in public. Cause I just think that is for her how she chooses to, feel like her own queen. And by dressing like that and by doing that, And I always remind people that however a woman does choose to express their own sexuality, it's still not an invitation. And I think that's where I find that there is a huge representation with it, with other women assuming that those are invitations, or those are expressions of sexuality looking for invitations. And but it's for women to stop judging that, but also for men to step back and to realize that it's not about them. We have a lot going on in our own minds, and a lot going on in this world with, I'll just say it, like mental health and insecurities and low self-esteem. And I find that as women, if we can really step into, feeling good about ourselves and whatever it is that we need to do for that day to do that, we should have no issues showing it and showing up and dressing and however we need to continue to feel that way for ourselves. And it's not up for, anybody else's concern. It's definitely not up for a man's invitation. But that's my thoughts on it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I think I get dressed every day to feel sexy myself. And if
Hmm.
somebody else appreciates that, great. But you're always going to have women who feel less secure or men who
Hmm.
want to catcall. You're always going to have those things. Doesn't matter if you're Oprah, if you're, you know, a person on Wall Street, a man on Wall
Yeah.
Street. You're going to have the juxtaposition within other people because you're
Hmm.
going to mirror something in them.
Yeah.
Stop letting that change who you are and how you feel about yourself, and whether or not you change how you dress or what you are doing, or because it's all of us being comfortable and being self-expressed that gives others the freedom to rise and find that within themselves.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's and I do find it shifts in different countries and in different cultures. I do think that, Canada and North America tends to be the more judgmental
Mm,
areas that I get a lot with that. And there's a lot of other cultures where, I mean, people just are openly expressing themselves in so many ways, and it's not even a thought. There's a different type of liberation in different places where it's just like, well, why would you be concerned about that? Whereas here, I think it is really hard on the women with how we were raised and what we, have those social stigmas and the things that, get put on us at a very young age. And that is what it is, I guess. I would like to see, hopefully, that changes the more and more there is these conversations, and for the newer generations coming up, for them to be able to break free from that and to step outside of that and realize that that is not, theirs to carry on anymore, that to let cut those ties and to step into, like you said, being the goddesses that we are.
mm. Yeah, I just find that there's a power struggle going on right now.
Mhm.
There's like, that Judeo-Christian type of thought on that runs and has infiltrated throughout um, North American culture. And
Mhm.
it's really, we're in a power struggle right now of, um, is that going to continue or get worse, almost like a Handmaid's Tale? Or is it
Right.
going to, are we going to continue to find this within ourselves? Because it starts within ourselves. You can get so
Mhm.
caught up in what is happening out here, but I just really encourage everyone to find this within yourself. Be be that expression within yourself, because that's going to be what influences outer world.
Right.
Don't get caught up in the outer world and get really constricted and suppressed. And it's a time to really open and be more of in your power, and that's what's going to change it.
Mhm.
So I'm all in agreement that our culture is, even though in some areas it's, we're supposed to be that forefront. As far as
Yeah.
sexual, it's very in the dark ages to me.
Yes, I think so as well. I wanted to ask you then about masturbation. You kind of mentioned, I guess the cost, knowing the cost of empty pleasures and versus the simple pleasures. So the empty pleasures you had mentioned, kind of like porn, the masturbation, the drinking and like addiction. So when it comes to masturbation itself, I wanted to dive into that and
Mhm.
get your thoughts and stuff on that topic.
So, masturbation in and of itself is wonderful. It's where we can really cultivate the energy and we can bring it. But it's
Mhm.
when you're masturbating for that release and you're masturbating to like get to that dopamine, get to that release of chemicals within you that takes the edge off and everything. But but turning masturbation where you're bringing that energy, but you're not expending your sperm or semen, or you're not expending it to the outside just for the sake of release, but you're actually doing it to cultivate it. Like it's a good thing to masturbate and begin to
Mhm.
bring that energy up, but it's when you just throw it away that you're just expending something that leaves you hungrier than when you started. And
Okay.
I how do you feel about me saying that, and where does that take you now?
Um, in the past, I definitely it was kind of always, you get something will maybe turn you on. So you saw something, you think something, all of a sudden like you're thinking, "Oh, like I really want to have sex or whatever." And so you'd kind of have like a little bit of a turned on thought, and right away it was just super easy to, run to your bedroom, grab a vibrator, and in 30 seconds you've got this release of this like buildup. So, and I mean, like, I always would use porn. It's a very quick fix, very just,
But
and
then it's done, right?
it's yeah, and it worked, I guess, for years. And then I did go through something about a year and a half ago where all of a sudden, it's like my body just stopped responding. I had no sex drive. I couldn't get myself off if I wanted to. And, through a reading I had had, somebody had told me, yeah, your guides, they've done that to you on purpose. You need to go within. There is no more of this external is working. And I found it very frustrating because, well, why isn't this working? Why can't I just watch porn? And why can't I just quickly get this done with? And so I just shut down from everything for probably 6 to 8 months. I didn't even try. I was just like, "No, I'm good. I'm done. Like, something needs a reset." And then when I kind of thought to try again, it was almost like I had to make love to my own body, but it was beyond uncomfortable, and I didn't like it, and I was frustrated, and it felt awkward, and it felt weird, and it wasn't anything I was ever used to. And then that's where, like, in my mind, I'm like, "Okay, well, this is that whole getting to know your body and going within and feeling what's actually in there." But it was so foreign because I grew up in a world where it's just that quick turnover, and I really probably didn't really know much about my own sexuality. It was just always have sex, have sex, have sex. And so, yeah, it was challenging, and it still took me, I want to say, 6 to 8 months to kind of really even learn that, and then to be able to enjoy being with myself.
Yeah.
And it was different, very. So I kind of understand what you're saying. Um, Not to say that sometimes, a very quick little session with yourself isn't still, valuable. But I've thoroughly actually enjoyed giving myself the time to enjoy multiple different pleasures with myself and trying different toys with myself and not having to think that I needed to do these things with a partner. It was a whole new world of an experience. And I was turned on by myself instead of being uncomfortable with myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that sexual tension. We feel that
Mhm.
sexual urge come up and we get uncomfortable with it, so we wanna release it. We wanna get
Mhm.
we wanna get the quick fix, but the quick fix
Yeah.
doesn't fix it. It's like, "Okay, well, I got rid of that," but it doesn't satiate. It doesn't really,
Mhm.
and I love that you brought up the make love to yourself, because I talk about make love to, the world, and the world will make love back to you. Making love to
Mhm.
yourself is this time to understand, what are these sensations in my body? Ooh, where do they feel really good? How can I just be in this space of this sexual energy, be comfortable with it, be embracing of it, rather than, ooh, I feel this sexual tension and I want to get rid of it. And that's
Mhm.
where it really leads to the addictions, or the part of where we're unconsciously not even thinking about, why are we doing this? What
Mhm.
is this sexual tension? Why am I uncomfortable with it? What is it? What if it just, ooh, like right now, I'm feeling it rise. I'm feeling, Pussy is saying, ooh, and she's down there dancing and stuff, and
Mhm.
feeling that, and then going, oh, okay, how can I place this intention right now into something that's for my benefit? For, oh,
Mhm.
well, maybe it's um, bringing on a new client, rather than, oh, I just want to get rid of this release. So
Right.
I love how you brought up that your body took you on a journey, and it will take us on
Mhm.
journeys. And our body is the greatest tool that we have. We think our mind is, but this is this wonderful receiver. And when we can tune into more higher vibrations, it's like back in the old days of an analog TV, and you were sitting there trying to dial in the next station of something. And but when you can really bring her on board and bring all of
Mhm.
these sensations, you're like, ooh, a high definition. Look at all those, wonderful new feelings and those new smells. And you're really tuned in on a different way. You're tuned in to and receiving different information, because you're now open to higher vibrational, um, I want to say learning, or
Right.
just what the universe is sending. It's always been there, but you're now in tune to it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that I mean, so many women, I think, because we're so hard on ourselves, it's like having that time and taking that time to actually get to know our own bodies and to spend time more than 5 minutes, not to rush these things, is really challenging for us in the busy world and with parenting and all of these things that, you know, you really do need to dedicate some time to listen, to breathe into it, to have your own space, not feel like you have to be somewhere, not feel like you should be doing this for somebody else. And that I think was the biggest challenge, is because it used to be like a clock thing. Okay, well, I got 15 minutes. Well, what am I going to do? I might as well go, sure, I'll go masturbate. Right. And for men, I think it's an even quicker, like, oh, I'll just do this. I have guy friends that are like, oh, I didn't have anything to do today. So I was bored. So I masturbated 5 times. It's like, well,
And then you're just shooting all that
yeah,
creativity out. And
yeah.
yeah, it's it's when we're consciously choosing, and when we're consciously aware, and when, like you said, taking the
Hmm.
time, make date nights with yourself. Make time. Put it on your calendar. Put
Mhm.
time to be with yourself for the sake of loving and exploring your own sensuality and your own sexuality. Not
Yeah.
for the sake of, who can I pleasure? How can I please someone? What can who can I make happy with, go have sex? It's like, no.
Mhm.
It's like, my pleasure is for me to, like, when I'm with another person, it's like, the focus isn't on them first. It's on me first.
Mhm.
It's on, you know, as I'm maybe engaging in oral sex, it's, "Ooh, how does this taste? How does this making me
Mhm.
feel? How is this really bringing such joy to me?" And then they're gonna feel that, and if they don't,
Okay.
that's their own experience. That's their own problem.
Yeah.
But when you're drawing it for the sake of your own pleasure, because pleasure is a whole spectrum,
Yes.
it's and when you're the only thing we can do is it truly is our own experience. And if somebody else benefits by us being fully tuned in and turned on, and
Mhm.
by that what which we're putting off or giving through our own pleasure,
Mhm.
then good for them because they're
Yeah. Oh,
benefiting
I
off
love
of my.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I've never even thought of that, I guess. It's like while we are doing something with another person, with a male partner, we typically are always so concerned with how is this? How are they feeling? Are they enjoying this? But you're right, kind of flipping it in your mind as to your own personal awareness of what you're doing. And think that that would just easily, transmute into still feeling good for them. But now we can kind of take that back so that we're enjoying that moment even longer and harnessing more of that sexual energy for ourselves in those moments, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. I think that's beautiful.
it was a huge shift for me. It's like
Hmm.
I'm here for you, but I'm here for me. Let's
Hmm.
and not in a selfish way, but in a selfish way. I'm
Yeah.
here to really feel in this moment the most alive I can possibly feel and the most vibrant that I can possibly feel. And when I'm feeling that, then I'm putting that into the space. But
Hmm.
we've been taught that we're here to make them feel good, then we'll feel good.
Hmm.
So, as you were saying with your slowing down and getting to know your body and everything, bring that same awareness when you're experiencing, whether engaging in any type of kissing. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm fully in that this is the most beautiful moment and I'm only in the moment. Your mind's not over worrying about how's their body feeling or whatever, but when you're like aware of the sensations in your own mouth and how it's making you feel, you'll know this just doesn't feel
Mhm.
right. And it's not feeling good. And no matter how I'm trying, and then stop, don't
Yeah.
continue just for the sake of make it stop and speak up and say, this just really isn't, working for me or whatever, because then you're giving yourself the permission and the space to create something even better.
Yeah. I love that because I feel like there's as women, it's like we've like once we've already put ourselves in the position where it's like, okay, we thought that, we were gonna be with that person or something. Once it's like you've initiated and maybe you're not really feeling it, we just automatically have that sense of like guilt of like, well, now I have to follow through with this regardless because I already said I would. But you're right. It's recognizing that this isn't working for you. Your body's not responding and this isn't actually something that's going to work and then stepping back and being able to take back that power of being like, "You know what? I'm sorry this just isn't working the way that like I was hoping it would. It's nothing against you. This just isn't, and then stepping away from that. But we have that guilt pressure in our mind that, typically, well, we owe them something. Well, now we have to. Well, and I mean, what a horrible reason and way to have a sexual encounter with somebody under the thought process that, like, I owe them, I'm already here. Oh, he already bought me dinner. All of those things where we should be able to step back and just be like, you know what? I'm just not feeling it. Thought I would, but yeah, I'm just not there.
Because then you're in your queen energy.
Mm-hmm.
You're fully owning your power. You're fully owning that, you can speak up, you can
Mm-hmm.
choose, you can make the right decisions based upon that moment. and
Mhm.
not based on anybody else or anybody else's response to whether or not it's right for them. And they may be thinking the same thing over there, but yet just following through. I don't like to feel like um, a whore for anybody, you know,
Yeah.
and or out of necessity that I have to continue engaging. It's no, don't feel it in my body. She is not
Mhm.
responding. I can say no, and that's what all the Me Too movement, what it started
Mhm.
for us was our voices and being able to choose and say yes or no. And so the
Yep.
more we do that, the more we exercise that power, that
Mhm.
ability, then the universe will respond with other things. But if we're just going to continue to do things out of obligation and necessity for somebody buying you
Mhm.
dinner, oh, is that all you're worth? Is a dinner date? You know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love how you say that. Yeah, that's where I'm at on my journey of really taking that back and really learning that for myself. But it's been amazing because it's one of those things where it's like once you start to find that part of your voice, you actually can just be like, okay, if I let you in, you know, if I allow you to take some of my energy, is it really going to be giving me back anything? And like you said, kind of fueling, or is this really just going to leave me feeling empty afterwards? And like you've just taken from me, but I've received nothing back. And I really have been asking myself that question in a lot of relationships and a lot of, intimate relationships. And it's kind of like there's a few where I'm like, no, 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 this isn't. And then I have to remind myself, this is my choice. This is my choice because of these reasons. And I think as girls, we tend to get, oh, well, he's not responding or he's ghosted or this and that. And even if we felt like we didn't want anything to continue, the minute there seems to be that pullback on their end, then we start to feel like, well, no, now we need to get it back. Where it's like, no, we had decided in the beginning this wasn't working, but because of the flip of attention, our naturally it's like we want that validation and we start to then pull back where it's just like, no, I just have to remind myself over and over and over. This is my choice for my greater good. This is my choice for me to move forward. Right? Their actions don't matter. I'm choosing for myself because I know this isn't aligning with where I want to be and who I want to be and what I want to create in my life.
Yeah. And where else can you go get that attention?
Right?
Maybe it's in some work relationships. Maybe
Mhm.
it's, up on some stages. Where else can
Yep.
you get that validation of your worth that, that shadow side is showing you that you're wanting, but you thinking it's coming in the form of, this man relationship, you know,
Mhm.
go create it in some other ways that can feed that and then it'll go away.
Yep.
But as
Yep.
long as you're putting that validation on whether or not, some man likes you or some man wants to take your sexual energy, um,
Mhm.
yeah, you're going to keep perpetuating that kind of exchange. And why would
Yep.
we? We were taught it. People pleasers, good girls, all those wonderful things that, my generation taught your generation, had taught,
Mhm.
where I was taught. My mom, she's 85, had her birthday yesterday, and, she comes out of that 50s, 60s, era where men, you walked around and had their glass of drink when they got home and they sat over on the couch and stuff. And, there's not a superiority in that we should feel like it's no longer acceptable. It's no
Mhm.
longer I'm doing my inner work at I turn 60 in November. I'm
Mhm.
doing my work so that future generations and my daughters, and I have a 20-year-old, and I want her in her full power and in her queen saying yes and no and this is not right. But if I'm not
Yes.
doing it now, then it's not birthing through my generational lines,
Yeah.
and I feel like, if I choose to have sex with somebody, then it's my choice, and I have at any point during that, I have the ability to say no. I was married to
Mhm.
an asexual for many, many years and allowed him to define whether or not I had sex. And,
Mm.
because of the commitment and the that that thing we say, till
Yes.
death do you part or whatever, but that was giving my power over to a man to choose what I did with my body.
Mhm.
And it's not his choice. It's my choice.
Yeah.
It's my choice all the time on what and why I'm doing it. Am I doing it to
Mhm.
please somebody? Am I doing it to please myself?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I love that you say that, right? And we need to step into that a lot more, I think, in all sexual relationship situations, relationships, marriages, right? And knowing that we're doing it coming from a place, using our power for something beneficial and not for the wrong reasons. Absolutely.
And not
Yeah.
staying in it for the wrong reasons. Not
Mhm.
staying in
Yeah.
it. I stayed
Yeah.
in it way too long because my sexual energy is huge. Always has
Mhm.
been. I'm very clear on it. I don't need somebody to um take me like to help, me explore my edges and my things. I'm fully capable of saying this is what I want and what I don't want. And I stayed too long. And I just want to encourage everybody, don't stay for the sake of the kids,
Mhm.
the relationship or trying to please. Really do some inner work and inner investigation on, no, I'm giving up
Yeah.
I'm suppressing because a lot of times when we get into a relationship at the beginning,
Mhm.
it is for that sexual attraction or it is for
Totally.
those, the things that we haven't even begun to cultivate deeper into, and we're not asking those deep questions right off the bat, you know,
No,
and
it's
really
so true.
exploring what do we want to get out of this? What are we committed to? And then changing those agreements all along the way, you know?
Mhm. No, it's so true. I agree with that 1000%. I think the open communication in the beginning of dating relationships, meeting people needs to be there on a deeper level with these type of conversations because it's the conversations like this that people think are so taboo to have that they put off and then it's months later, years later into a relationship and you realize that these things are not working and that there is some differences there that don't leave you feeling good and then you're struggling trying to make it work then where people could just communicate, be authentic, have these conversations in the beginning. I think you'd save so much time and so much hurt and so much, I guess, wasted energy trying to figure it out what it is that the other person needs and trying to make them happy, but still at the same time trying to find your own happiness. And if it's not working, it's not working, but then you try to force something to work that, it just leaves you further depleted.
Yeah, but there's conversations to have along the way too, because
Mhm.
I think about when John Gray first started his, five love languages. That was it. There was men from Mars, women from Venus before that he, came out with, and that was like revolutionary. And then when he came out
Mhm.
with the five love languages, and we understand that I'm a kinesthetic, I'm a touch. But yet my husband was not at all. We were so mismatched in that, yes, he likes the kind deeds and everything.
Mhm.
But when you're trying to get your love language and the other person is incapable of delivering it, but then when you even get into the erotic blueprints and you start learning, have you heard of Yaya's? She's a sex educator, sexologist, who's developed the sexual blueprints. That's a whole
No, I
nother.
haven't.
oh, I could go into, and maybe we'll have another topic and discussion on the
Yes,
sexual
yes.
blueprints, but there's another whole level of, okay, well, here's how we're going to communicate love. But then you get below the surface and you're starting to understand that people operate from a whole different energetic, I mean, a sexual blueprint, and how they like to be. There's sensual, there's energetic,
Mhm.
there is sexual, and then there's a shapeshifter. Oh, kink. Kink is the other one. And then there's the shapeshifter who really goes into all of them and really likes to, feel and utilize all of them. But if you're with somebody who's just a sensual, who just likes soft touch and like smells and
Mhm.
things, and you're over here wanting to explore the kink side, you have to understand that about each person, and you have to begin to work, understanding, ooh, what would turn her on, and how can I bring that more into this. So there's a whole nother
Ah,
level of sexual expression.
okay. Yeah, we will definitely have to do another episode and interview and dive deep into that. I'd like to really touch on those. Is there a book or anything that you can recommend where people, if they do want to kind of read it about this stuff, that they can actually
About
get
the
into
sexual
it?
blueprint, about the sexual
Yeah.
blueprint. So Yaya, if you go to Miss JAIYA.com, she
Hmm.
has she was on, if you wanna, here's where they should start. If they have
Okay.
Netflix, go to Netflix, and, Gwyneth Paltrow did Sex, Love, and, Goop, and
Okay.
she did a whole series for Netflix, and Yaya was one of the people on that. So that is someplace where they can kind of start seeing, and they can watch, and but there is on her website, there is
Hmm.
a test that you can take,
Okay.
and there's a free version. And so I work with people all in this area because it's
Hmm.
just more self-expression. It's more understanding how do
Yeah.
you to be touched? How do you like sex? Well, maybe yours is sexual and you just like that hard fucking, you know?
Hmm.
And how can you set yourself up to win in these situations? So there's just, we're absolutely just scratching the surface
Yeah.
on,
Okay.
what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's amazing. And honestly, so I do want to ask then, and I'm so grateful that you were able to come on and actually have this conversation for everybody listening as well, for them to kind of learn a little bit more of, ways they can tap into their sexuality and ways that they can harness their own sexual energy. What is the one thing that you do for yourself in your life to honor yourself as a sexual creature, and that you express yourself sexually for that female, feminine goddess energy?
Yeah, it's so the one thing that I really do is own my power. I
Okay.
really, and I transmute. I really use my sexual energy, cultivate it, harness it, use it, um, in a way that really brings me pleasure and brings things into
Mhm.
my world. And I take time for my pleasure. It's my number one priority. Why should we focus so much on pain? I focus on my
Mhm.
pleasure and the whole
Okay.
gamut of pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, I love that. That's a nice answer. I think that's beautiful. I think a lot of women could, do that for themselves more and with the self-care and the self-love. For everybody listening, where can they find you? Where can they, learn more about you? Where could they tap into finding you to have more conversations with you about these topics or to get, help from you?
Yeah. So the one key place is to go to biz of pleasure.com/masterclass,
Mhm.
and begin by taking the masterclass, which goes in, and then that puts you on. a way to begin to really understand my work and begin to get involved. I have things like pleasure mapping sessions where we, get into your desires and your turn on after
Hmm.
that. But they can also schedule on that once they go to the master class, they can get on and book a call with me. Um,
Okay.
Social medias all are Marianne St. Clair, and I'm sure in the links you'll have, the spelling of my name. Social medias, the one that I'm not on as much is Instagram, but
Okay.
LinkedIn, and Facebook, hit me up. Let's
Yeah.
begin your journey into deeper self-expression, sexual self-expression.
Yeah. I love that. I love that for women. I love that for everybody listening to like to know that there's so much support out there. There are so many places that women can go to get help and to have support and to, feel free and open to having these conversations with somebody who genuinely loves being in the space and genuinely is, not judgmental and there for them. So we will make sure that I put all of your stuff in the show notes. So anybody, when they do listen to the episode, they can find all of that. But I just think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that people are having these conversations and there's so many different ways and so many different tools that they can kind of tap into this to really step into their own power and to cultivate the life like you said that they really desire through harnessing that sexual energy.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you for having the space for us to have these conversations, for people to, really get engaged in their own sexual health. We're,
Hmm.
we're worried about our physical health or our mental health, but all of that stems off of, too, um, our sexual health. It's a big
No.
place where we need to spend more time.
Absolutely, I agree. And I love that it is all connected, it is all united. And I don't think people realize that, but it really is. And it makes sense, right? To think of it like that. So that's amazing. Thank you to
Yeah.
everybody listening. I hope that you were all able to get some value from this. And I'm just so grateful for, Marianne and her knowledge in this space as well. So thank you. And all of the information will be in the show notes for everybody to reach out. Let us know your feedback, and we will talk to you on the next one.